One of the main advantages of Connect over other meeting and conferencing solutions is that it runs on top of the Flash player, which many people already have installed in their browsers, and therefore they can attend a meeting simply by opening the meeting URL in their web browser. No other applications or software are required to watch a meeting. However, when you start actively participating in a meeting, or when you're the host and you want to do more than simply share a presentation, you may need to add something called, appropriately, the Connect add-in. The Connect add-in is a relatively small utility program that lets you do things like share your screen, or it lets attendees have the entire meeting run outside of a browser if they prefer. If you've already been playing around with the Connect trial, it may have already asked you to install the add-in, depending on what you've clicked or tried to do. So in case you haven't already installed the add-in, let's walk through the process here, and that way you'll know how to do it, as well as how to instruct your participants to do so as well. It's actually pretty simple. So I'm here looking at my meeting info page. I'll click its URL to open the meeting room. And you can see in this case, the meeting room opens up in its own tab inside my browser window. And we've already seen this several times at this point. But as soon as I do something that requires the add-in, for example, here I'll click Share My Screen. Now, in some cases, for instance here in the Safari browser on the Mac, I see this message telling me that I have to adjust Safari's security settings before I'll even see the prompt to install the Connect add-in. Depending on the browser you're using and your security settings, you may see a similar message or nothing like this at all. Basically, this has to do with how Safari sandboxes or isolates plugins that could potentially compromise the security of your browser. You can click Learn More to learn how to allow specific websites through this protection, but I'll just show you how it's done here. So I'm going to click OK to dismiss this window first. Now I'll go into Safari Preferences, and here under the Security section, I'll click Manage Website Settings. And here you'll see a list of the plugins you have installed, and in this case, the Flash player is already selected. Over here on the right is where you'll find a listing of all the websites that are allowed to use this plugin in the manner you specify. So the only listing I have here for the moment is for my Connect URL, and it's set to Allow, meaning this website can use the Flash plugin, but even then it still has restrictions. What I need to do here in Safari if I want to install the Connect plugin is change this menu to Run in Unsafe mode. That gives me this warning message, but I'll just click Trust since I trust the Adobe site. I'll click Done, and I'll close Preferences. All right, now I'll reload this page. So now when I do something that requires the Connect add-in, such as share my screen, now I see this message that says I need to install the Connect add-in. So again, if you're not using Safari or you don't have your browser security settings set quite as tightly as Safari's default, you won't have to go through the whole process we just looked at. Instead, you'll just see this message right away. But I wanted to make sure to include this information for anyone who has their browser security heightened. But in any case, if you do anything that requires the add-in, such as sharing your screen, you'll be prompted to install the add-in. Now, if for some reason you don't want to install it, just click No, but be aware that you won't be able to share your screen without it. So I'll click Yes. I do want to install it now. And it's a very small and quick download. So what's happened now is that the Connect add-in has been downloaded and installed, and the meeting has been handed off from the browser to the add-in. If I bring up my dock here at the bottom of the screen, notice that the Connect add-in is its own separate application. And you can tell I'm running the Adobe Connect add-in by looking at my menu bar up here as well. And that holds true on the Windows side of things as well. If you look down in your taskbar, you'll see the Connect add-in is a separate application. If I go back to my browser, you'll see that just the meeting information is currently open. But the entire meeting room itself is now hosted in the Connect add-in, which has taken itself pretty much full screen. This can be advantageous if you want to be able to see as much of the room layout as large as possible without browser bookmark bars, address bars, or other browser interface elements taking up space. Here in the Connect add-in window, all the space is taken up by the meeting room. And you can resize it if necessary. If you want to make it smaller, I'll just leave it at its full size. And now I also have the ability to share my screen, share my webcam, and so on. We'll get to how to do those specific things later, but if you find that you can't do them, make sure you install the Connect add-on. So now, anytime you open a Connect meeting from the computer on which you installed the add-in, the meeting will open in the Connect add-in rather than in your browser. So I'll close the Connect add-in. And back here in my browser, if I click that URL again, we'll briefly see the message that the add-in is installed, and then the add-in will open and display the meeting room. Now, if for some reason you want the meeting to open in the browser window, for instance, maybe you need to see the other windows on your computer, or maybe you're troubleshooting and want to keep the meeting in a browser window, there's a little bit of text you can add to the end of your meeting URL to make it open in the browser. So to do this, I'm just going to copy the URL. I'll create a new tab, and I'll paste that in. But before I press Enter or Return, I'm going to first delete that slash at the end of the address, and in its place, I'm going to type a question mark, the word launcher, the equal sign, and then the word false. And now when I press return, that opens the meeting in the browser window. So if for some reason you prefer not to launch the Connect add-in, you can copy or bookmark this version of the address, or even email it to others to make sure your meeting opens in a browser window. Okay, so that's how to install the Connect add-in.